Wait, is it gonna bother you that I'm taking all of these out of the plastic?
Just don't make noise. Oh my gosh. I can't isolate our mics, so whatever you do is here. Do you want to take it off until you're done?
No, I'm done.
Okay. So this week I want to go...
I don't know what we're doing.
Take the mic off!
Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Mark and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm sharing an exciting crochet project with you. This is something that Megan and I at Around the Table Yarns picked up during a recent heat wave in northeastern Ohio. So stick around to see this project unfold. We've got the usual highs, lows, and rerouting that take place during most DIY projects. So if you are a crocheter or a knitter, both are involved in this project, and I hope you'll stick around to see how the finished product turns out. Let's get into it. So for this project, I want to come to you in real time, sort of as the inspiration strikes me and as I go through the decision-making process of starting this project. So we've got Megan here with me as well, and we're here at Around the Table Yarns, where we both work. Are we working or are we playing? Well, we haven't opened yet, so that's the answer. So I really want to make this granny square vest.
Agnes sweater vest.
Mm-hmm. And I've wanted to make a granny square vest or cardigan for a while, but every time I start and every time we go and pick out the colors and the yarn, I swatch it and I think it's going to end up being too heavy. It's going to be way more granny squares than I really want to make, and I'm not even sure if I'm going to love how it turns out. So this time, I'm pretty sure I want to do it. So we start with our swatching and we start with our colors. And I have a little bit of footage from yesterday going through colors where we thought we came to a conclusion. So I'll put that in here. So my goal is to use wool stock from Blue Sky Fibers for this project. If you've been here on the channel, especially in recent videos, you've heard me talk about this fiber. So I have a lot of it left over, scraps of it, in my stash. So I'm gathering any and all portions of wool stock to try to figure out how many colors and which colors I want to use for these granny squares. And I need something like 31 granny squares total for this project. So I could use a lot of colors if I feel like it. No, she was.
What happens if you put the orange in now?
I like that.
That's pretty.
So the orange and the red I like, but I don't like the orange with this.
Is that too jack-o'-lantern?
No.
Throw the purple back in, Pam.
I got a lot of nerve.
No, I like the orange better.
I just like how rich that is.
I know, so make me a sweater in it.
Which is so appropriate.
I don't know, Pam. I like that.
I mean, I like
I do like
it.
that. I think that's gonna be my safest.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. After swatching my first square, I don't think I'm happy with it, so we're going back to the drawing board to look at more colors and also look at the effects of different hook sizes and maybe taking out chains in between each cluster of granny stitches, cluster of double crochets. Okay. So yesterday I made my first swatch, which I think looks like garbage, but for two reasons. I don't like the assortment of colors and my repeat of the one color, but I was just swatching to get the size really. But also it's just so gappy, it's very sad. So then Megan, she's a miracle worker.
That's what they say.
So Megan's swatches are here at the top and here on the left. Look how good they look. And then I look terrible.
You just chained. You don't chain.
Oh, so the biggest difference,
Chain.
as Megan said, is that she didn't put any chains between the clusters of, what are we calling these? The granny stitches?
Yeah, the clusters.
The clusters. So she'd go cluster to cluster, and then would you work a chain at the corner? One chain at the corner. Where I was working a chain all the time, like I just couldn't stop. But that's what the pattern was calling for. It's what it was asking me to do. But Megan's look so much better. They look spongy. They look cushy, they look thick, the colors I think look better.
I think they're okay. They're light.
I think they're great. So that's going to be my first shift, but we're also going to look at different assortments of colors. If you've been here on the channel before, you'll also know that Megan always helps me or has a hand in choosing my colors for projects. I typically doubt myself when putting together colors, especially if I need a lot of them. So this is the case where I'm going to be using a lot of colors. So the first thing she's recommended is that I really choose which color is most important to me that I want to make sure I have carried throughout the project. So here's a little bit of color talk unfolding, and if you feel like skipping along, there are always timestamps below the video if you want to skip to a certain part that makes you happiest. So let's dive into these colors. Do we still think this is a good
I love that.
joining? So this is my joining. This is my background because it's nice and neutral, but it has more contrast than this color. So this is my choice for sure, which I think would go with anything. So it doesn't really limit us. My dream, where is it?
This is your dream.
This is my dream.
Yeah.
I kind of like the darker.
I do too.
My dream is something like this. I was thinking something like this, but really a darker purple. This is Scout, Mulberry Heather. So this is our dream
Yeah,
wool
that's good.
stock, which we're currently out of. And we think this is a decent sub. I think it's very similar.
So I think not this.
Okay.
You feel like this is too heavy.
Yeah, do we not want the green? The green threw me
I think so
in
too.
this. I think the green made it too like hay bale ride, pumpkin.
It didn't blend with those colors. On the table, it looked fine.
Right. I don't want it to be too seasonal. The other thing I was thinking when I was doing my swatch is that I definitely need kind of equal parts, dark and light, so that I can do contrast from round to round.
Well, you are going to have all those rounds, and you don't want them to all look balanced. I think it
You
looks
think sometimes
nice.
they need to be...
Yeah, I think it looks nice when some are more obviously brighter.
Okay.
And that's why I'm doing more than, if I need 5 rounds, I'm doing more than 5 colors because I don't want
You don't want
every
the same
square
assortment.
to
in
have
every
the
single one.
same colors. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I get such a whiz with color.
Here we go.
You really are.
So, I mean, this is the only warm. I guess these two are a little bit warm. I don't want it to be all cool, I don't think. But I don't know that I want the background to be gray.
Yeah. I think you pulled out the, what is it called? A voodoo doll? And you placed an enchantment
A
on
spell?
it so that I would want to crochet, because I woke up today wanting to crochet. Well, this looks amazing. I'm really happy with mine. I think this is a really good assortment. It's going to make great granny squares. Will you help me pick my colors?
I'm going to put some of these away so that we're not overwhelmed.
I would like mine to be neutral enough to wear in multiple seasons. I want to be able to wear it in late summer, in the fall, maybe even in the winter. So I don't want it to scream autumnal. I just wasn't happy with my sample. I know I used one of the colors twice, but I wasn't happy with everything going on. The red and the blue and the pinky purple, then the green. I just felt it was too wacky. Are these too close?
I don't think so. And, I mean, if they're together one time,
Yeah, it's fine.
and I think, again, when granny squares are too uniform, I think it looks really kind of dull. All of the examples that you see on this sweater that you've liked are very different. Even the one that we saw that used the same 2 colors in each one, I think you could do that.
Is
and
that
switch
crazy?
up. No.
In here too? Because I like a little blue. So we're at the end of day 1. My ugly swatch from the first day, it's too gappy, too loose. I also didn't like the colors. But this was color plan number 1. So that tells you how good I am with things. So day 2, with the colors we looked at earlier, putting together a pretty big selection. We had what? 9 or 10 colors?
A lot of colors.
A lot of colors. So this was the first square with the joining color. And for me, it was just a little moody, but I understand with all of those colors, I was going to have a variety. So I thought if this is the moodiest it gets, that's great. So then I tried to make one using some of the lighter shades, and this is what I got. I don't mind this.
I like it.
I think it's nice. But the real kicker is when I put them together, they're so different. I don't envision myself being happy with a vest made up of squares that have that much variety. And Megan and I played a little game this morning where she showed me several project examples from the project page on Ravelry, and some of them people had identical squares, some of them they were using the same colors in different arrangements or different orders, and then several examples where people were using several extra colors, so some of the squares were completely different. And I didn't like any of those. So I thought maybe I really need to narrow. So I think this is it. I think we have plenty of colors here so that I'm not always repeating the same thing. There's enough contrast to go back and forth, and then kind of a couple fun pops that I can maybe use sparingly or maybe use more often if I like them. So I think this is where we'll get started. Okay, so Megan's right. No surprise there. I wanted a more cohesive grouping of colors. So the good news is the squares are looking spongier and happier than the first option, and they're measuring out to the right size. So now we had the larger assortment, which I think is kind of represented on the table. We're taking out this gravel road. I'm also getting rid of my dark green. Wild Thyme. I love the color,
Which is your favorite.
but I just think it's too dark. It's making
Doesn't
them
work
too
here.
moody.
Yep.
And then we had these greens thrown in. They're nice and bright, fun pops, but I just wasn't feeling the idea of green once I held it up to me. And I'll hold these up to me in other footage so you can really see. So then, with the idea of more cohesive squares, this is what we came to. Keeping my favorite color of the sort of plummy purple, the blue, the dark, dark navy, northern lights, lilac,
Lilac bloom.
the
Highland
white
fleece.
occasionally, and then this pop of midnight ice cream, ice
That's not morning
icy blue,
frost.
morning frost,
Spring ice.
spring ice, yes, spring ice. That's good. So
I caught it too late.
I think these are my colors, and the squares will have either, each square has 5 colors, so we'll either have those 5, this will replace a color, or this will pop in replacing a color. But every square will still have 3 colors in common throughout, and the joining color will stay the same as we have here, which is why the white will be used sparingly. Okay, that's my day 2 update. We have Megan's perfect swatches. They just look so good. But now we can see her work from like 5 minutes of crocheting. Look at these puppies.
Several hours.
They're gorgeous. And now your game plan is what?
So, and first, I know these are curling, and people will say, use a larger hook. I don't want to. They block out. It's fine. I like how close everything is together, so that's my goal. As far as color, the lilac and the northern lights is going to appear infrequently, as is the Highland fleece. And I really wanted it to be cool tones, neutral. So blues and grays, but I love this color. It's my favorite.
That's really exciting.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's cute. I like all of them, I think, so far. And I probably won't do all of the middles and then do all of the second round, etc. I'll probably do 3 or 4 at a time so that I don't get so far into it that I can't change, oh, I have too many of this color or something. So I focused more on the blues this time.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, we'll
happy.
check in.
Go us!
See you soon.
Okay, so I have some made. I'm not going to do the ultimate, the most exterior anymore. I'm just going to do all the...
But you have an example of what it would look like.
Right. So I'm making... I don't want to do all of the 25 insides and then next row, etc. I'm going to do maybe 4 or 5 at a time. So I'm doing all the littles, and then the second rows, and then the third. And so I have some that are all primarily blue and gray, and then some pink here and there. And I like that.
Do you have a favorite so far, or a top 3?
I really like this, because I love that color. I mean, I like how this fades. I like all of them, but I love this color.
I think this is nice. With
Do you like it with the lilac?
With the lilac?
The one that you don't
Yeah,
like for
thank
yours?
goodness I'm going to keep it in mind. So in mine, nobody asked, but I'll share. My favorite, I think, is this one so far.
How will you finish that one?
Probably with the dark.
I think that'll look nice.
And it'll be very bold, very striking. I'm a fan of this with my little plummy. I like that the plum is in the final round for now. But I like this. I like how different it is. I think I'm going to be happy with everything. So on we go. Now that things are settled and I'm just on the road to making all 31 of my squares, I wanted to talk a little bit about the anatomy of these granny squares and some of the choices that Megan and I have made for how we're executing this project. And if you're a crocheter, if you've made granny squares, you'll know that you can choose to leave all of your ends until the end of the project and then weave them in. You can also choose to do your granny squares with different approaches. You could crank out all of the centers, all of the first rounds for however many squares you need, and then come back and do all of the second rounds, all of the third rounds, etc. Or you could do them one square at a time to completion. So initially for our swatching, we worked these squares to completion just to get an idea of the measurements and the color combinations. Now that that's established, we're both doing them in batches. So I'm working 4 to 8 centers at a time, choosing which colors to use here and there, and then going back and doing my second rounds, then my third rounds, then my fourth rounds, etc. And as I'm doing all of that, I'm weaving in my ends after each round. So it's a lot of pausing to snip and weave and snip, but it means later in the project when it's time to block and join these, I won't be left with extra work. So that's my approach here towards the beginning of this process. Now that we approach the end of week 1 of this project, Megan is done with her squares. So she has distributed the colors beautifully, she's done her final rounds, and she's ready to block and seam her project. Me, through some rerouting of colors and being a slower crocheter is a big consideration here, I'm behind. So it's taking me several more days to work through these squares, and I'm trying to pay attention to how I'm using my colors. I don't want all of the centers to be the same couple of shades. I also don't want the penultimate round or the final contrast color round to end up being too prevalent throughout the project. So I'm keeping a little list as I go to have fairly even distribution and also have my favorite colors best represented through this project. So as I keep working on my squares, it's time for Megan's vest to get the ribbing. And it's interesting in this project that you get to combine crochet and knitting. Now, if you only crochet, you could do this project and choose to crochet your ribbing at the hem, the armholes, and the neckline, but the pattern calls for knitting. So if you do both crafts, it's fun to put them together. So I volunteered when we decided we'd do these projects to knit Megan's ribbing, more on that later, but at this point she passed her blocked garment over to me so I could work on the ribbing and at the same time try to keep churning out the rest of my squares. All right, now that I'm in day 8 of the project, it's time for me to block my squares. So you'll see them all happily here on the desk. I think it's exciting to finally get to see them, to start arranging them and imagining how I'll put them together for the finished garment. I've seen people use those blocking boards that have holes and pegs to really suspend your granny squares. And initially I thought that would be a great way to block these, but I've got 31 of these squares. So one board would only hold so many squares, even stacked up. So I opted to use my blocking mats, and I ended up with a whole room full of squares from my blocking mats holding these pinned down granny squares. I always start by filling my basin with lukewarm or room temperature water and adding a little bit of wool wash because I used wool here. So I'm using Soak. It's a non-rinse wool wash. So it goes into my blocking basin, but afterwards there's no need for me to rinse everything out. I can just press the water out and let them dry, and they'll be ready for wearing or assembling in this case. I went ahead and put all 31 squares into this basin and took a little bit of time to really press the water into them, or press the air out of the squares. So I'm looking at the bubbles, trying to wait until I'm not seeing many more bubbles to know that all of these are truly submerged and saturated with my water. And lastly, because I have so many colors involved, I wanted to put in a color catcher. If you've been here before, you've seen a couple of color bleed incidents. I've never had any issue with wool stock from Blue Sky Fibers, but I've had issues with other yarn, things that are maybe over dyed or aren't quite sealed in. So if I'm ever doing something with multiple colors, I like to throw a color catcher in just in case it helps catch any of that extra runoff from the dye. And now to pin these out. You'll see a few of these granny squares are just kind of crumpled up, pretty damp, pretty wet actually. And at this point, I'm just pinning them onto my blocking mats that have 1-inch grid marks. So my square should end up measuring 6 by 6. So I'm counting across my measurement and then using some pins to block, or pins to pin, each corner of the square. And obviously I should be using rust-proof pins, but the only ones I could find when it was time to do this were not rust-proof. So if you look closely at my granny square vest, you'll see little bits of rust on the corners of most of the squares, which it's really imperceptible from any distance, and I barely noticed it when I was finishing the project, but obviously a no-brainer to use pins or something to block that isn't going to rust and run off onto your beautiful work. I ended up stacking my squares with just 2 in a stack so that they would still have enough space to dry. And this only took about a day for everything to dry, and now it's time to pull them off of the blocking mats and get ready to arrange them to assemble into my vest. We've got the squares. We've got our squares stacked by penultimate color. So I only did a few of the light blue because I felt like it looked foolish. So I've got 4 of those. Those will go on the sides. Then we have several plum, several midnight sea, and several October sky. So here's the point where I'm going to lay them out, try to make sure I don't have identical squares near each other, and then we'll start to seam things together. As far as assembly goes, I just wanted to make sure that I didn't end up with any semi-identical squares right next to each other, or scenarios where you have too much navy or too much pink or too much of the same running in one direction or in one area of the garment. So I laid things out on our big table at the yarn shop, and Megan was very helpful to give me a second set of eyes just to make sure that I was happy with the balance of things before I started to seam them.
Are you happy with them?
The sides is where I plan to put the light blue.
Yes.
I'm okay with them going anywhere, but that's my plan. They can just stay on the sides.
Sure.
The other two on the sides doesn't matter to me. It's like whatever
Is left over.
the imbalance.
It's funny how this blue looks, depending on what else it's next to, looks like different
Yeah.
colors. That almost looks green here.
Are we okay with the back?
I like that. Okay, so the back. Are you doing the same kind of...
I just want to have stuff spread out. So like right now, the pink, I
Yeah,
think is
that's on the
too...
side.
It goes to these two pinks diagonal, yeah. And this looks too similar.
Yeah.
All right, so what do you have for...
What are you making over there?
What I don't like is the 3 blue across the bottom.
Yeah, that's what I want to break up. I was
And the
looking
2
for
blue there.
red.
I would be fine with these being blue coming over the shoulder.
That's what I was...
That's fine with me. So then we have 2
I
black.
want to get another...
Yeah.
And now that they're all arranged, I clipped everything together with some of my quilt binding clips and tried it on just to see how much filler I might need to add. Now, one thing I love about this pattern is that depending on what size you'd like to make, you'll make a larger or smaller granny square. So instead of having 3 squares across for a size small and 5 squares across for an extra, extra large, both sizes will have the same number of squares across the front. So you'll still get the same look as what you saw when you first looked at the pattern. Your squares are just larger or smaller, and then you go in and add a little bit of border or filler to also make sure you have enough ease in the whole garment. So for mine, it called for little bits of ease between the front and the back, separating those side panels out. So I wanted to try things on and make sure I knew exactly how much ease I wanted to add. I don't want it to be terribly oversized, but I also don't want it to end up being too tight. So we clipped things together so that I could get a little taste of how it was fitting so far and what I might need to do to finish it. And now that I've got the arrangement and the idea of the ease needed, I can go ahead and start to whip stitch everything together. So now we've reached day 10 and things are assembled. And in my mind, I really felt like it would be done at this point. You finish all the squares, you block the squares, you seam them, which didn't take too long, but I was imagining that to be the most tedious part. But now that it's all together, it's time to add the knitted ribbing. And for Megan's sweater vest, she didn't need any special accommodations, I guess I should say. Everything was straightforward. So it took me 1 to 2 days to knit the ribbing for her sweater vest. For my own, you'll see it takes me several days. I think the biggest reason that my sweater vest needed a little more thought or attention for the finishing is because I made a much larger size than Megan made. And I always find that when things are on a larger scale, the proportions shift and sometimes things become much more angular or little issues become much more glaring. So in this case, because we're working with squares, everything is angular. The armhole openings, the neck opening, it's just a square or a rectangle. There's no rounding that you could get with regular crochet or regular knitting. And I knew that I wanted to do some sort of rounding out to make this fit me in a more flattering way. And I want it to be a more flattering feel. I want it to be more comfortable and also look as good as it could. And in the pattern, the designer does call for little bits of rounding out at the corners, but it's truly just a little bit. And you'll see in footage coming up, my armhole openings are super angular and pretty large. So I had an idea in mind and I'm going to do my best to tackle it as we get to it. All right, it's July 1st. I don't know what day of the process this is for this project, but editing Mark will of course put that in for this part of the video. So my sweater vest is almost completely put together. I have a couple ideas about what I want to do to make the fit even better, to make it more flattering, more comfortable to wear. So let me throw it on and then we'll talk about what I might do, what I might try to add to make this the best possible outcome that I could imagine. So let's go. Okay, here we are. I like it so far. I really like the look of the granny squares. I'm happy with the colors that everybody helped me choose. So I'm excited to have this. I said before, I've wanted a granny square sweater or cardigan or vest
for a few years now, so I'm glad I finally am close to having one. So here it is. Let me just give you a turn and then I'll share my specific thoughts. The first thing I'll say is that I'm really happy with the fit. I think it fits well, it's roomy, I could see myself sitting, lounging, standing, and feeling comfortable. Like I have plenty of wiggle room in this. So I'm happy with the amount of space I added between the front panel and then the sides. It's not much space. It's like 3/4 of an inch in 4 different places. So that's given me, I think, a good fit. The next thing to consider before I go in with the knitted ribbing is anything else I want to do to close up some of this open space. And first, let's talk about the neckline. I feel like the front neckline of this is a little deep. You can see the way it's constructed. We just take out a complete granny square, which gives us that space, but I'm just supposed to go in with a knitted ribbing. And if I were to do that, it would come very close to my neck on the sides and the back, but it would still be scooping quite a bit just in the front. And I don't know if I like that. So one thought I had is to do a partial granny square, but looking at it now, I don't really think there's space to do a half granny square because it would come right across my neck and then the ribbing would probably be too high. So I don't know if that's the answer. Otherwise, I might build up this space a little bit with some filler of my joining color and then try to go in and do the rounded neckline. So on the back, I've added a little bit of shoulder shaping, and that helps the granny square right at my neck dip a little bit so I have room for ribbing. And I'm happy with how that turned out. The front just comes down maybe too low for my liking. I really wish I could do a half granny square there, but I think that would bring it too far up. So we'll see. I'll play with it. I might just do the ribbing at the neck and see if it's decent, if it kind of pulls things in organically. And if it doesn't, I'll pull that ribbing out. It's not a huge deal. And then I'll try something else. So that's the first thing I might want to adjust to give this a better fit. Next is a consideration at the armhole openings. I think the depth of the armhole is pretty standard. I like it for vest that it's deeper than my actual underarm point, but this kind of fits like an apron or a smock where the front is so far from my arm and the back as well. I have this really large side opening, so I'm not concerned with the depth. I'm sort of, well, the depth this way. I'm concerned with the depth front to back. So I think I'll go in, and this is something the pattern recommends, and add a little bit of shaping from this point down just to build this up a little bit so that it brings it in and makes it fit more similarly to other vests, other traditional construction of vests. And of course, we're limited by the squares. The squares can only do so much for shaping, so that's why we added a little bit of space before joining the sides. It's why I did a little bit of shoulder shaping. It's why I want to figure out something for the neck. And similarly, I think we'll try to add something here to round out the sides. So I'm going to work on those things. Otherwise, we're all joined, we're all seamed together at this point. Once I've done whatever shaping I can add, then I'll get to finish everything with the knitted ribbing at the neck, the armholes, and the hem. So I'll check in once I've figured something out. It was interesting when I brought up the idea of the half square at the neck. I took the garment into work at Around the Table Yarns and I asked a few of my coworkers and a few of the customers that were in their opinions. And I tried it on with the more dramatic dropped neckline, and most people said, don't add a half square. It's going to be too much. Just leave it as it is. But I wanted the half square. I wanted to at least try it. So I made my half square. I put it in without weaving in my ends, just in case I needed to pick it back out. And I thought I'll try adding the neckline and see if I like that first, because I wanted something to be as similar as possible to the crew neck fit of a lot of sweaters I've made. And I think having that half square allowed me to have the right depth at the back and the front of the garment. So I'm happy with it. If I decide I don't like it down the road, I can pick out that half square and change things up. But for now, I think it's the right thing to do. So I wanted to mention it because you watching at home may hate it. You may be shouting with other solutions. And again, it might be something that I could adjust or do differently in a similar garment in the future if I feel that it's a better solution. So here's a look at one of the attempts to round out the armholes, and it's just puckering too much. It's not ideal, it's not what I want, and I have ideas about how to change this, but this was the first result. And I went in with a bit of crochet, and then later ripped that back, and then tried to do a little bit of knitting because I'm a stronger knitter, and my experience working with patterns where I can do short row shaping and any sort of adjusting, I know more about it in the knitting context than I do with crochet. So I attempted crochet first, thinking I can freehand and do what I need, but it was just buckling and puckering and turning out to be more confusing for me than it needed to be. So back to the drawing board a few times here to try to figure out the best possible solution. And what ended up working the best was a series of short rows at each corner of these armhole openings, which I knew from the beginning I wanted short rows, but I had to experiment with how to do them and how far to go each time to shape this without creating too much fabric. And again, just achieving the right balance, the right proportion to make this look and fit in the most comfortable way possible. And I'm sure a more experienced knitter or somebody who has the ability to design and envision all of this without the trial and error, I'm sure that person could have told me exactly what to do. But this is part of my journey. It's part of my own exploration as a growing crafter. And I'm always excited to walk away from a project having learned a new skill or experimented with something that I could then apply to something else down the road. And that's the case here. So it took me a few days of back and forth, trying different approaches, first following what the pattern says, but then finding that I wanted something a little bit more. And I ended up with short row shaping at the front corner and the back corner of the armholes. I ended up adding more in the back because I found that I wanted the garment to have a little bit more coverage, and in the front, with my arms down, the fabric was just getting smushed in my underarm and it wasn't necessary. So a little bit of shaping, little corners in the front, and a bigger, more dramatic corner in the back. So that ended up being my solution. After that, it was very straightforward to pick up for the ribbing at the armholes and finish the sweater vest. So sorry. We're gonna film a little video about our vests. Okay, so we made it.
Here we are.
We did it.
We literally made it.
Yeah. I don't know what day it is, but I'm going to go in when I edit and put all the days in because I want to keep track of, this project in real time. For you, this took you a week?
Mm-hmm. Took you
3 weeks?
No,
I think it took me 3
my
weeks.
portion of it took you a day.
No, a couple
knitting?
days. Couple days.
I feel like it was very quick.
Yeah,
was
so
beautiful.
Megan made her squares. And you joined your squares.
Pick colors, made squares. Yeah, that was probably.
And then
4 days.
I volunteered to knit the ribbing on Megan's.
Yeah.
Which was pretty straightforward because you assembled it beautifully.
And I did say, I can knit it. Can you just help me get started? Mm-hmm. And you said,
I said I'm happy to
No.
knit it because I love to knit. You know me, I knit 90% of the time, and you crochet 98% of the time.
yeah. Really?
So anyway, then on my own, I was a day or two behind you with squares because I crochet more slowly. And then my seaming was fine. I think when I got to the seaming, and you've seen this happen already, that was fine. It didn't take too long. But it was my process of doing the armholes.
Right.
The neckline, not so much, not really an issue at the hem, but the armholes.
The construction of what you were going to do on the sides in general, I feel.
Yeah.
And the shoulder shaping, yeah.
So my side has sort of 2 panels deep, 2 panels high and 2 panels deep. Yours, you
I
should
just
have
have the
one.
one.
So your armhole is already a little more oval shaped.
I wanted mine to
was
be-
really angular.
This is more, I think, I don't know, depending on the size you do, the pattern tells you how many to do on the side. But I wanted mine to be more like a tunic, like a panel in the front and a panel in the back. I see that it sort of sticks out on the sides. I don't mind that. I didn't want something that was right under my arms. I wanted something that looked sort of like a less expected construction. So I was happy with a front panel and a back panel and then pulling them together. I love the split seam. Mark made it a little larger in the back, or longer in the back, shorter in the front, which I like.
Yeah, other observations. I put this on and I said I feel like a Pop-Tart. I feel like a toaster pastry with all the, I don't know, the grids. I think it's kind of a funny look. I put it on the other day and one of our owners said, you look like a hippie. And we laughed. And I said, well, for me, I was born in the 90s, so I didn't experience the first wave of granny squares. And we get a lot of customers here in the shop who say, I don't want to do anything granny square. I don't want granny stitch. I don't like the look of it. It makes me think of the things my grandmother made when I was growing up.
We also get plenty of people who, I've done so many just teaching granny square classes.
Yeah.
So many people want to learn granny squares.
And it's a variety of ages, right? It's not just one clear
No.
demographic wanting it or not wanting
kids,
it.
adults, yeah.
And when we look around the shop, we have beautiful examples of granny square projects, granny stitch projects, even a sweater on the wall using granny squares, kind of like these. So I think to each their own.
Yeah, there's been plenty of celebrities who have worn recent years granny square cardigans or the dress, or men and women, and so people are really tuned into those.
Yeah, so I was excited. I've wanted a granny square garment. I've wanted a granny square garment of some sort for a couple of years, but every time we sit down to do this, I haven't liked my assortment of colors, or I felt that it was going to be too heavy.
Right.
Something about it, or just too much work. If I need 50 granny squares for a project, I was like, I don't think I can crank out
Get
50
through that.
granny squares. So I think mine has 31. You have
lot.
25?
25,
27?
27, yeah.
Because I did the double layer at the sides, I needed, I guess, 4 more squares for mine. But I've loved it.
Yeah.
And even though I look like a Pop-Tart, I'm
Don't
excited
look like
to
a
wear
Pop-Tart.
this.
I don't know what that means. No, I like mine. I like that it's all, I don't mind the big bands of the background color between with just like a little pop of color. I wasn't looking for something that was, I don't know, overly colorful. I know I have 5, 6 colors in it. I didn't want anything that was all the same or identical squares. I'm happy that this color isn't in every square and that they are all over the place. But I was going for cool tone grays and blues, and then I want a little pop of the lilac and my favorite Northern Lights. So I like it, and I like the back.
Yeah,
I'm happy with it.
absolutely. So I would do this again. I enjoyed it. I like it as a vest. I like this better weight-wise than a full sweater, because I think on my arms, if I were fully contained, I would be really hot. It's summer right now. It's 85, 90 degrees outside. Beautifully air-conditioned inside, which is why we're doing
Fine
this.
here.
But you know, it doesn't actually feel that warm because it's a vest. And like you said, you have such open sides,
Yeah.
almost like a smock or an apron,
Right.
or, you know, I love that.
Yeah. I feel like some granny square cardigans or sweaters, because you've got granny squares all the way down the sleeves also, at the shoulder point, they really pull open and it distorts the look of them. Because this is pretty flat front and back, you don't get a lot of misshaping
Yeah.
in a garment. So I like that it's a great pattern.
Yeah, and
nice
for
job.
me, this is day one. The whole thing hasn't been blocked. The squares were blocked, but the joins and the knitting, that part hasn't been blocked. And I know with wear, gravity will help it expand a little bit. So I'll get a little more length. It'll lay on me differently, and I'm excited to see how it settles.
Yeah.
So, big fan.
Yeah.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you. It was great.
I want to say a huge, huge thank you to Megan for going on this journey with me and making another matching garment. We have a few other things that match already, and I think it's fun. I think it's special to make something along with a friend, and because we work together, we get to plan to wear them at the same time occasionally, which I love. Again, not for everybody, but it's something that I think makes both of us happy. So thank you, Megan. Thanks for putting up with me. Thanks for being willing to subject yourself to all of this chaos. Also, a big thanks to everybody at Around the Table Yarns for helping me with all of my projects. I think having a community where you can get inspiration, get supplies, and then get opinions and ideas and solutions along the way is invaluable. And I always say that for people out there, people watching who don't have a strong local yarn shop community, I feel for you, and I hope that you can find that community somewhere in your general area, or at least through things like this, through videos you watch, through virtual gatherings, because it makes a big difference. And for me, it's taught me basically everything I know. So, as always, thanks for choosing to be part of this community that I put here on the internet. It's great to spend time with you each time we're here, and I always love hearing from you in the comments. I'm excited to hear about your projects, your take on today's garment, and anything else going on in your crafting worlds. As always, you can find me over on Instagram and Ravelry at makermarkknits. You can also find me over on Patreon, where we get together for our own virtual crafting group. So that happens about 4 times a month, and I'll put those dates up here on the screen, and if you're interested, you can find us over there. As always, happy knitting, happy crocheting, and happy crafting to you. Hopefully, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.